Hello and welcome to our weekly Parsha Shiur with the commentary of the Alshich HaKodesh. This week's Parsha Shiur is dedicated by the family of Rivka Rochel Bas Shmuel David, whose Bas Mitzvah is this particular Shabbos, and the family want to celebrate that. If you would like to dedicate the Shiur to celebrate a happy event in the family, to commemorate somebody who's sadly no longer in the family and gone to Shemaim, or for any reason, then it's, can you see that? Yeah, it's been obliterated by the lights. Rabbi, there you go, YY at rabbiyyy.com, YY at rabbiyyy.com. The Shiur, I should warn you, has got a new lighting system to try and make a better quality video, and I hope the sound is good too. So we're getting very high market here today, really high class stuff going on. Okay, the Sedra, the commentary of the Alshich takes us into very, very deep water. In fact, the water flows from the rather deep depths, from the depths we were last week into even deeper depths. Now I can say it, deeper depths. So what I'm going to do is take the Alshich and change the order. I'm going to give you a very interesting and beautiful insight into one part of the Sedra. And then, for those who want to file that away and have got a wonderful Dvar Torah to say the Shabbos table for this week, then that's fine. And those who want to stay with me for the most deep bits, then, well, that's the whole Shiur, so it's entirely up to you. The Sedra VaYishlach, of course, marks the confrontation between, or the reunion between Yakov and Eauv. It is absolutely fundamental to what Judaism is, a key confrontation. And you should know that confrontation between Yakov and Eauv was always the blueprint at the time of the Roman Empire, which lasted obviously a very long time, when the rabbis had to travel to Rome to try and petition senators of Rome to change a decree or get Caesar to change a decree, which was very detrimental to the Jewish people. Then they would study this confrontation between Yakov and Eauv. There is a very important reason for that. Because, as we saw in last week's Parsha, when Yakov has to flee from his brother Esauv's wrath because he's stolen his blessing, more of that shortly, then at that stage, he cries to his father and says, "Do you have no blessing to give me? You have nothing else? Has he taken everything?" And Yakov famously says, this in Kaf Zayin and Lamates, "No, I do have a blessing for you." And part of the blessing says the following thing, Mishmani ha'oretz yeh meshovecha. From the fat, and fat means luxurious, beautiful, rich. That's the word I should really have used. From the rich parts of the world, Mishmani ha'oretz, from the richest part of the world, ye mishovecha. That will be where you dwell. That's where you live. And Rashi says, what does that mean? What does it refer to? He says, this is Italkia shel Yovan, Italy of Greece, the part of Greece that was controlled by, part of Rome, Italy, which was controlled by the Greek Empire in its day, before the tables turned and Rome controlled Greece. In other words, Rome, with the legacy of Eauv. Now, when it says it's his legacy, that's interesting. So was Edom really the founder of Rome? Well, let's take us to something a little bit, again in Alshich, and some very deep waters here. The Alshich says, the Parsha is in the Parsha of Lech Lecha. In the Parsha of Lech Lecha, you may recall there's a war, there was a battle between 4 kings and 5 kings, resulting, of course, in the defeat of Sodom and the taking away in captivity of Avram's nephew Lot. There's a whole story there. It's not what we're going into, but at the beginning of the story, this is what the Torah says. It says, "Vayhi b'yimei Amrophel, in the days of Amrophel, Melech Shinar was the king of a place called Shinar. Arach Melech Elosar. Arach was the king of a place called Elosar. Kadol Omer, that was the king of Elam. Sidol Melech Goyim. And Sidol, who was the king of a place called Goyim, nations, I suppose, United Nations, something along those lines." That's what the Pasuk says there. That's in Bereshis, Yud Daled, and Pasuk Aleph. This war between these 4 kings, who are identified by name and by geographic location, or at least by their people, the Alshich, when he talks about that, says something which is very, very strange. Well, rather, he doesn't say it. He simply quotes a Medrash Rabbah, which says it. And this is what the Medrash Rabbah says. The Medrash Rabbah in Bereshis Rabbah Mem Beis Hey, if you're looking for to write down notes, he says the following thing: Amraphel Melech Shinar, the Amraphel, the king, the first king that appears, he was the king of Bovel. Okay. Arach Melech Elosa Zemodai. Arach, the king of the king of Elosar, he was Modai. Now a pattern's emerging. And then Cardinal Omer Melech Elam say Yovan, that was Greece. The Tedal Melech Goim, and Tedal, the king of this place called Goim, Ze'edom, that was Eauv. To which the Alshich asks very obviously, this doesn't make any sense to say what we've just read in the Medrash. Magam Orma Ze'edom, to say that this Tedal fellow is Edom, is Eauv, he says the obvious. Edom lo hoya v'lo nibra. There was no Edom, no Eauv in those days. Eauv, Edom, is the son of Yitzchak. He's Yaakov's brother. And we're talking about Avram's time. They're not born yet. How can you say that these four kings are the people they say? And certainly, how can you say Eauv? So there's an important message here. Of course, there's all sorts of prophetic hints going on in this story. Because remember the angels going up and down the ladder, according to one medrash, which we looked at last week, says these were the angels of the nations that were going to control the Jewish people. Bovel, Babylonia, Modai, Greece, Yovan, that's the Hanukkah story we're rushing towards next week. And then, of course, the last and final and longest of all, that's Eauv and his exile. So the Medrash says these four kings that fought against the five kings, which forced Avram to intervene, they were actually the kings from the future. So to understand this, there's a very, very important message being said here indeed. See, Edom indeed wasn't born yet. But Edom and Eauv, when indeed, of course, part of the blessing that Yakov gives them, that he would live by the sword, and that philosophy, the philosophy of Edom, lives and exists before Edom and after Edom. It is freed from time, freed from personality, and freed from geographic location. Anybody can be Edom. Anybody can take on Edom's perspective, Edom's philosophy, Esauv's attitude towards the world. Sadly, even Jews. To live by the sword, to want power. That is who Eauv was. The philosophy which he took up existed in the world beforehand, and it exists in the world now. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a confrontation between Yakov, whose philosophy is eternal, in a eternal struggle between a counter philosophy, one that admires war, one that lauds combat, the gladiatorial competitions is the wrong word, slaughter, in the Colosseum of Rome. Please note, of course, the Colosseum in Rome, which is, of course, where gladiators fought to the death, was constructed with the money that was looted from the destruction of the temple. The place that was supposed to be the focus of the Jewish people in Yaakov's philosophy, a place of peace and shalom and connection with God, was now going to be transformed, metamorphosized when the Romans took it into a place which symbolized death, slaughter, and of course many gods and idolatrous beliefs. Interesting idea. And whenever the great rabbis of Israel had to go to confront Rome, that is the philosophical Rome, the philosophical inheritor of Esauv's beliefs, Esauv's philosophy. Was he literally, physically the inheritor? I mean, the progenitor of Rome? I don't know. Maybe he was. The reason to say why not. However, his philosophy was going to live through Rome. And the barbarity of Rome, despite all it being the foundation of Europe, and indeed most of the Western world, arguably, you could say, most of the world is rooted in that philosophy. That is going to be a philosophy which is constantly at war with what Judaism has to say and everything. a total philosophical war. They studied this in order to try and see what would be the best way to get around this. And the confrontation between Yakov and his brother Eauv is full of tactics and stratagem that he employed in order to succeed. You remember, he splits the camp into two. He prepares presents for him. He prays, and he prepares for warfare. They're all classic Jewish approaches when confronting the world of Eauv. Let's go and have a look at the Parsha through the eyes of the Alshich, and we'll go into this in the depth which I promised. But as I say, we won't go too deep initially. After we've established what we're talking about, what the Parsha is about, what the focus of our Shiur, our abstract of the Alshich is going to be, then we'll move on and go deeper and deeper. We're wading into the sea of the Alshich's Torah here. Let's perhaps be worthwhile reminding ourselves exactly how the story begins, and I hope I've got these in chronological order. So in this week's Parsha, I'm hoping this bounces up onto the screen. I better share the screen as well, actually. And here we go. Let's see if I got this right. Move this out of the way. There we go. And VaYishlach Yakov Malachim lefonov. So here we go. And Yakov sent Malachim in front of him. Malachim, Rashi says, real Malachim, real angels. El Eauv Achiv, to Eauv his brothers. To Seir, to the land of Seir. Sedei Edom. Sedei literally means the field of Edom. But Sedei, as the Alshich says in his commentary on Megillah Rus, is a euphemism for a city. So the land was called Seir, and the city, the capital city of it, was called Edom. Somebody commands them Limor to say, this is what you'll say to my master Eauv. This is what your servant Yakov says. I've been living with Lavan, the Eicher Adato, and I've been there the whole time until now. So the great break between seeing each other, this is what was going on. That's all we really have to look at. And then we'll have to look and see what the Alshich has to say. So I'll shrink this. And let's bring up, I think, the Alshich. Or rather, actually, I can probably tell you this bit outside, so I can stop sharing. And I think it will be worthwhile to tell you just what's going on here. He sends angels. Now, in the second part of the Shiur, I'm going to see how it is that he can possibly command the angels to do anything. Sounds very strange. After all, God commands angels. Why does it say that Yakov tells him to do something? But certainly, let's just take it at face value without going any deeper into this, that he sends angels to his brother. And remember, it said to my brother to Eauv, two expressions. You see, in meeting up with the brother who he's fled from, who he stole, again, I keep doing this thing, this inverted commas thing. We'll see when we come to the Alshich why I'm doing that shortly. When he's confronting his brother, he's concerned that maybe he did steal the blessings. Maybe there was an argument in Shemaim that it was the wrong thing to do. He was told to do it by his mother, and she's a prophetess. But sometimes there can be an aspect when you do something, 99% because it's the right thing and you've been told to do it. But there's a bit where you yourself have your own agenda. For example, when it comes to Shmir Saloshin, the Chofetz Chaim says, there are exceptions to not speaking Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara, of course, is to say or report something negative about somebody, which is true. So if I heard you were going into a business partnership with somebody whom I knew was a cheat, and maybe I had experience of that, then I am allowed to tell you and warn you, except if I resent the fellow and I want to bring him down. In that case, we have to rely that Hashem's going to find somebody else to inform him that information. Because it could be that 99% of my motivation in telling you about it is indeed to protect you from this wicked fellow. But if 1% of it is for me, then it's flawed, says the Chofetz Chaim in the Sefer Chofetz Chaim. And therefore, I cannot do that. God will have to find another agent. Maybe Yakov is worried that maybe there's some percentage of him, even though he's doing everything, checking every box, because his mother's told him it's prophecy, etc., as we said before. But maybe there was something in him that was not 100% l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and that's what he's afraid of. So therefore, he's now going to send angels to see what's going on with his brother Eauv. Now that he's coming back to the land of Israel, now that he's no longer protected by geographical space, now he's back in the neighborhood. Is Eauv going to resurrect the old vendetta, the old vengeance, and come and kill or try to kill his brother? Why would he send real angels instead of real people? So, the Alshich says there are 5 reasons for this. Number one, some of them are very prosaic, some are very pragmatic. Number one, he's been away for a long time, 14 years. And apart from that, before then he's separated from his brother, but sadly he's been in Chutz La'aretz for 14 years. In the meantime, his brother set up, as we saw, a city and a state, a small state. Maybe it wasn't small, I'm not actually sure. But where is that? Where is this place? He doesn't know where it is. There was no ways in those days that you could actually, type in, take me to Edom, take me to Shiur. He doesn't know where it is. Now, if he sends human beings, then it's going to take a long time for him to get the answer, because they're going to have to go and to find and ask people, and it's not so easy to find. They've never been before. Which direction should we go? North, south, west, or east? But if he sends angels, angels are not timed by geography or time, space or time. If an angel wants to be there, then boom, in a second the angel is there. And then boom, and again in a second, or instantaneously, you're going to get the answer which Yakov wants to know. Is his brother coming as his brother, or is he coming as Eauv? That's why he sends angels, Malachim, El Eauv Ochiv, to his brother Eauv. Could be coming to me as a brother. It could be that I'll meet him and it will be with brotherly love, or it could be that he'll come to me as Eauv, the man who hates me and has already tried to kill me and wants to kill me. Which one of the two is it? So to get the answer 5G, we will give the analogy, with fiber optic speed, then I'll send angels. Human beings, they're not so quick. Second of all, the answer why he sends angels, he's giving you 5 answers altogether. The second reason why he's sending angels is because, remember, the nature of Eauv is that he was able to fool his father Yitzchak that he was a sincerely religious person. But of course, he was a sincerely irreligious person, a murderer, a rapist, and all sorts of extremely nasty stuff. So he was, as Rashi tells us, he was an Ishud outside. He knew how to trap, how to fool people. And as a consequence, if you send people, and he says, oh, I can't really see my brother. Oh, that old stuff, forget that. That's in the past. Look, who cares? But inside, just waiting. As the Italians, saying we seem to be stuck with Italy tonight, as the Italians like to say, vengeance is a dish best ate cold. In other words, not in rage, planned, calculated, and never letting the person that you want to assassinate know that you want to kill them. So, which one is it? A human being might not be able to read his mind, but an angel will be able to read his mind. So you get an instant answer, and you get an accurate answer because an angel's looked inside the fellow's heart. That's another obvious advantage to send an angel. Excuse me. Number 3. Hold on, I'll make sure I got my list here. Yeah. Good. Nursing. There is an interesting thing here. The name of his land. When I was in school in Scotland, growing up, we had to read the poetry of Scotland's national poet, who was a fellow called Robert Burns, Rabbie Burns, as they say in Scotland. And he wrote a poem called Tam O'Shanter. And it's a funny poem, comedy poem. And in it, it's a story about a fellow who comes back from work and goes to the bar, goes to the pub, gets drunk. And he doesn't realize that very soon he'll have to face his wife's anger as he comes staggering over the front door. And he writes like this. The fellow doesn't think of the journey ahead of him. He's too busy enjoying himself. And when he says, when he'll come home, where sits our sulky, sullen dame, gathering her brows like a gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. Interesting phrase. It was very cleverly written by this fellow. Nursing her wrath. You see, in the ordinary way of things, time is a healer. And we've got a very large amount of time that separated these two brothers. So normally time heals. But you know what? That Italian, that mafioso expression, vengeance is a dish best served cold. Some people keep it in the fridge, just keeping it ready to refresh, take out so it's still fresh. Or to use the Scottish poet's phrase, nursing her wrath. That Eauv was nursing his wrath to keep it warm. Why? Because what did he call it? What did he call his city? Or what did he call his land? So he called his city Shiur. Um, so what does Shiur mean? Shiur means hair. Hair? I'm calling a city hair. It was to remind him of the fact that Jew brother of mine wrapped, when he stole my blessing, he wrapped fur on his hands so that he would, if my father, my blind father, felt his hands, it would feel like my hairy hands to steal my blessing. And of course, Edom, that reminds me of the red soup that he tricked me into giving up my birthright from. So there's another reason to want not to send ordinary people, because this fellow might have been nursing his wrath to keep it warm. And if you send an ordinary person, then it might be that the ordinary person comes back minus a head. So that's another reason why not. Okay. I think I've got my calculations right here. What is Hashem's cheshbon for him is his other concern. Maybe indeed there is something to my concern, my fear, my worry that perhaps I didn't do everything that I did in taking the blessing, even though I was told to correctly. Maybe there was a bit of my self-motivation in there. So it's interesting, he says, he commands these angels to say, let's get that screen up again, because I think we have to share the screen at this point, because we'll start to forget what we'd said. Excuse me. And there is. VaYishlach Yakov Malachim Lafon of El Eauv Alshich. So Yakov sends angels in front of him to Eauv, his brother, Artza Seir, to the land of Seir, Sedei Edom. VaYitzav Osim Limor, and he commands them to say, Koimar Sabran. This is what you should say, La Adoni La Eauv, to my master Eauv. But why not just say VaYitzav Osim Koi Amar? What's this Limor? An extra word Limor here. So the Alshich says something very interesting. He's scared, Yaakov's scared that the calculation in Shemayim, that in heaven's calculus, that maybe he has done something wrong. But he doesn't know. But they do, because they live in Shemayim. They're angels. They know this stuff. So is Hashem angry with me? Remember we talked last week, we'll come back to this when we go deeper in a second, that when he says, if Elohim is with me, our share from last week, then it'll be for me a God. If he guards me in the derech and he gives me clothes to wear and food to eat, and Elohim, why? Says this is making a condition. As I said last week, that's not the case, because when Hashem promised to be with him, the word was Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem's name, which means, of course, his midah of rachamim. But Elohim, the midah sadin, might disagree with the midah of rachamim, and we saw an example how that could happen when we looked at that last week. So he's scared what's happening in Shemayim. Is there such a fight going on between mercy and strict judgment? Am I in trouble? You must know. Tell me. And the Alshich says that the angels don't tell him. He commands them to, but they don't. Why? Because Hashem hadn't told him. And Hashem doesn't want somebody's bechira to be taken away by certainty. That means that what's coming next is going to be the product of his choice, and the choice he's going to make, not somebody giving the results of the examination before the examination actually takes place. So that's why he sends real angels, and that, I suppose, is a nice answer, or a nice piece of Torah you could say at the table. But we can go much deeper, and we are going to go much deeper. And so at that point, I think we should share the screen and look at the Alshich. But before I do that, I've got to take you to what the Alshich is going to say is crucial and critical information. So I've got to show you the end of last week's portion. So if I can just bring that up and share the screen with you. again. Just make sure I've got the right place. Yes, I do. Okay, so here's the end of last week's Parsha begins. This is after the separation of the father-in-law Lavan, who chased after Yakov trying to kill him. They kiss each other. It seems to, and he kisses his grandchildren. And off he goes, VaYishlach Lavan l'makama, and Lavan goes off back to the place he came from. But then it says, Yakov holach l'darkoi, and Yaakov goes to his l'darkoi, to his path. Vayifka bo malach Elokim, vayifku bo malach Elokim. Pagia, the word pagia is when you meet somebody suddenly, right? Somebody rushes towards you. Vayifka bo malach Elokim. And here's a verse that's going to be very difficult to translate. Yakov, just like I've seen this camp of angels, and he called the place camps. Anybody any idea what that means? And just in translation, it sounds gobbledygook. Again, Yakov, can you see that? With a bit of luck, I'll change any I did there instantaneously. I must find out exactly how to do that. But Yomer Yakov, and he said, Kasher Ra, just like I've seen, Machane Elokim Zeh, this camp of angels, I call it camps. Well, if it's not a camp of angels, shouldn't call it camp. What's this camps thing? So I'll try and keep that down here because maybe I'll have to bring that back up again. It's now time to go into the very, very deep waters of the Alshich, and it will relate to the deep flow that we went into last week as well. So let me pull up the Alshich. Just something fell in the closet in there. And here is the Alshich. Okay, and I've got to make this a bit bigger for you, I think. Bigger for me, actually. Gets to a certain age when these things become a problem. And this is what he says. So now we're going into pure Alshich. To understand what's going on here, not simply if we should consider. It says at the end of last week's Parsha, the one we just looked at, and Yakov went on his way. Okay, now he asks, why does it say on his way? Why does Yakov went? What's l'darkoi? 2. Omra v'yifka bo. The word v'yifka means lo yistadik kivaloshin pegia. The word pegia means to come across somebody suddenly. Somebody, you turn a corner, somebody's coming towards you. But the angels didn't come towards him. Angels come from heaven. So it's not sort of like two people walking towards each other. You're walking along, and then suddenly, woof, an angel comes down. I think woof's probably the wrong word, but you get the idea. So therefore, he says, they appeared, because angels tend to appear. He lifted up his eyes and he saw them. I want to say that the yifka, meaning two people came towards each other. Why does it say, now that I've seen this Machne Elokim, this camp of angels of God? And the last question, Machne Malokim should have called them a camp of angels. Why is camp of Machne Elokim? And then, of course, the obvious question, which we already asked, why call it Machanayim? Okay, I hope you got all those, but if not, of course, this is a tape or a digital recording. You can simply rewind these and look at it in the text as well, which allowed me to go move on a little bit, because we've got quite a lot to get through. As you can see, we've got all this page and a little bit in the next page, but this is the deep water, which I still think is well worth us looking at. Omno, this is what he writes. In emes ki brochas aviv me'Hashem hoya loyli Yakov. The blessings that Yitzchak gave were indeed the ones that Hashem wanted him to have. Remember, we have already explained that Yakov is worried that really he doesn't deserve these blessings. And maybe there's a bit in him that didn't do it completely the way that God wanted him to do. But really, ultimately, everything that happened at that stage was exactly the way Hashem wanted it to be. Kamufurish Sefer Zohar bear hated as the Zohar, Sefer Zohar explains well. So I told you we're going to Kabbalistic waters. And do remember the Alshich was a Kabbalist. Somebody, a very fine Jew, I'm sure, translated the Alshich on the Chumash many years ago, and he took out all the Kabbalistic bits. And I'm afraid if you cut out the Kabbalistic bits of the Alshich, it's a bit like cutting the heart out. His His great Talmud, one of his greatest Talmudim, was, of course, the Arizal. And the Arizal, who was greater in Kabbalah than the Alshich was, Alshich wanted him to teach, and he wouldn't let him teach. He wouldn't teach him. He was his Gemara Talmud. He studied Gemara from the Alshich. But the Alshich learned Kabbalah. They learned it from Rav Moshe Cordovero. There are two schools, or many schools, but two major schools of Kabbalah. One is the Arizal school, and before that, Rav Moshe Cordovero. Anyway, having said all that, here's the Alshich in full Kabbalistic mode, and he says there, it says quite clearly that Ach Yakov lo otz miyas nodan bekirboy olai genuvas hoye imoy. That even though the Zohar says quite clearly that everything that transpired was meant to transpire, he did nothing wrong, he can fight, he got all right, but he's worried. It never escaped him the worry that maybe there was some degree of illegitimacy in what he did. And he'll have to appease the person who's got a complaint against him, Eauv. But that's not the case at all. They were given to him specifically and particularly in that way from God. The entire story of Yakov stealing Esauv's blessing transpired because Hashem made it happen that way. And it had to be in a way which seems, and indeed was, what's the word? Sneaky, underhand. As the Zohar says in Parshas Todos, which relates to the story of Adam and Eve and the snake, which we cannot go into here. It's a very Kabbalistic idea, and would take away all the rest of the Alshich, which I'm not going to do. But if you want to look at the Zohar and Todos, and you can email me, I'll be very happy to have a conversation with you about it. When Yakov came to the land, then when Yakov came to the land of Israel, Hashem gave him the most incredible honor. Why? Through his angels, which he didn't occur when he left the land of Israel. The ladder went up to heaven, and we saw angels going up and down, different to the pshat we learned, different medrash, different pshat, different aspect of this story, this prophetic vision. The angels that went up were the angels who escorted Yakov in the land of Israel. There are angels that are part of the fabric of what the land of Israel is, the holiest place in the world. They are, in a sense, the holiest angels. And Yaakov is about to set foot over the border of Israel to go to find a wife, to Chutz La'aretz. The angels of Eretz Yisrael don't set foot outside the border of Eretz Yisrael. Those angels going up and other ones coming down. These were the angels who were equipped to walk with him and escort him into Chutz La'aretz. I told you, Kabbalistic deep ideas. Let's do that again. When Yaakov came back to the land of Israel, he gave him a tremendous honor through his angels, which he didn't occur when he left to go to outside Israel. Because then there was the Malachi Elokim, the angels of God went up, and others came down to take him out to, or escort him to Chutz La'aretz. But now that he comes back, apart from the angels who were indigenous, if you like, to Chutz La'aretz who came back with him, apart from them, then Yotze Lekabel Ponav Malachi Eretz Yisrael. So Yaakov is coming to the boundary of the border of Israel, surrounded by angels from Chutz La'aretz, and coming to meet him are the angels of Eretz Yisrael. Two groups of angels. Why does it say Machanayim? Camps of angels, because there were two groups of angels. So he says, Yotze Lekabel Ponav Malachi Eretz Yisrael. The angels came out, and Terem Nistalka Oboim Me'oi. And there was both camps there, both groups of angels there. One didn't depart, which is what happened before. The angels of Eretz Yisrael went back up to heaven, now he's leaving. And the other angels came down. But now both, the angels of Chutz La'aretz and the angels of Eretz Yisrael, stayed there together. Terem Yistalka Oboim Me'oi. But Oifen Shoye Kovad, Kofel, Shemalachi Eretz Yisrael, Yotze Chutz La'aretz L'Kvoida. And that was a tremendous honor that the angels of Eretz Yisrael actually came outside of Eretz Yisrael to greet Yaakov's return. This couldn't normally happen. But for Yakov it did. Now that should have, of course, have stopped Yaakov's fear that maybe I've done something wrong. Well, if you did something wrong, why is Hashem sending you these two groups of angels? But unfortunately, fear and guilt, even at the level of a Yaakov Avinu, is still present and can sow seeds of doubt, which of course you remember was the little graphic that I put on for last week's Shiur. The doubt of Yaakov Avinu, is, am I free from guilt in this whole thing? Let's go back to looking at the text. So here is what the Alshich goes on to say. So he says, so there were two camps together. So why does Yaakov get this great honor now? That is to say that before one group of angels departs, the other one is still there. And the second one, but now that he's coming back, then they come to greet him. And you remember, of course, Rashi says, the message that he sends to his brother Eauv through these angels is in Eauv and Garti, I'll stay with Lovan. And the word Garti, Rashi says, Garti is the same letters, if we rearrange them, as Tariq. I kept the 600,000 mitzvahs. 613 mitzvahs. I kept the 613 mitzvahs. Tariq. Garti, Tariq, same word. But Rabbi Yerucham, the Mashgiach of Mir, he says, no, more than that. It's because I lived with Lovan that I have kept the Tariq mitzvahs. It's only when you're faced with a challenge can you pass a challenge. You can study Judaism all you like, you can master the texts, but can you actually put it into action? One of the reasons that the two camps of angels are there to mark Yaakov's return is because Yakov has come back as a very different person. He has grown enormously, so enormously, from his confrontation with his father-in-law, the father-in-law from Gehenna, and has refined himself to such an extent that here we've got two groups of angels to greet him. And that's why it says, when we VaYishlach at the end of last week's Seder, and Yakov went ledarkoi on his way. Let's get that back up so you can remind yourself. The Yakov holok ledarkoi. We said, what does that mean? V'yifka boy malachei Elokim. And he bumps into angels of God. No, he does, because they did come to meet him. It wasn't they came down from heaven. It was the angels of Eretz Yisrael came out to meet him with the angels that had with him. But notice it says Yakov holok ledarkoi. What is the derech of Yaakov Avinu? Where is his derech? To Eretz Yisrael. Before it wasn't his derech, but his place, the place where his soul is rooted is Eretz Yisrael. And therefore he says, Lama Kiba Behasam of Har Maria, when he was on Har Maria, when he had the dream, when he was leaving Israel, he wasn't going to his way, he was going outside Eretz Yisrael. That's not his way. It means Yaakov's loy. Mahul Eretz Yisrael, and then he's coming to Eretz Yisrael. Right, L'chutz La'aretz. Hofach Shrosham, he was going outside something which was the opposite of his soul. Now he's coming back to such a place that he belongs there. But okay, for Yivka, and that's why the angels of God, he bumps into them. Yivka mean like that, bumping into somebody that way. Angels should be done that. No, they're coming to meet him that way. And that's why the Lashon Pegia is appropriate. They didn't come down from heaven. And they came down. These angels of God come down in Har Maria, where the temple is, where Beis Hamikdash is, and from there they traveled to the border to meet Yaakov. They came down in Eretz Yisrael, and then they came to Yaakov and actually set foot outside Eretz Yisrael. Like anybody, we go and greet somebody, an old friend coming back. But he recognized that. And when he said Kashar Rom, when he saw them, he didn't say any. He doesn't say Machne Malachim, a camp of angels. Kasher Hoyu Machne Asher Iti, like the angels have been with me outside in Chutz La'aretz. Right, Machne Elokim him. He said, when I see Machne Elokim, let's get that up again. And he says, V'yam Yaakov Kasher Rom Machne Elokim. When I've seen these camps of the angels of God, Machne Elohim, are not just ordinary angels. These are the Machne, the camp of the angels of God, of Eretz Yisrael. That's why he calls it Machanaim. So he says, back to the Alshich. Mishon bo neged Yakov Yivka, they came to him and he says, Ki Ishabod across where we did that bit. So Machne Elohim, Machne Hamarkova Miuchedes Elohim, the angels that escort God normally had come to greet him. Asher Heim Panimim Heim Malachi Eretz Yisrael Ba'etzim. Therefore, behu kamatmia eich yotze chutz la'oretz. How could they come terem yabra me'ever Eauv? How could they come outside? And the answer is because he was a very, very perfected human being, the most perfected human being of the Eauv of Avram and Yitzchak. Two camps, jumping a bit. Now, oye ki im hilya belvad al biyose la'oretz. When he came back to Israel, it should be the one. It's really a repetition. This I think we can miss this bit. But there's a little bit to say more. It should have been the other camp of angels disappeared, but no, they stayed. Al-Kin Omer Bali said to himself, "Ki enza ki im shashem chufetz afasi es Eauv al brocha shenatalti mimenu." It could only, maybe, he's still not sure. I would have thought that Yakov seeing this great greeting, this incredible endorsement from Hashem, that would assuage his guilt. But he thought, well, maybe it means I'm supposed to make peace with Eauv. Maybe I still have done something wrong. Let's do that again. I should send, he thinks there. If these angels, I've gone back to Eretz Yisrael, it should be that the angels from Chutz La'oretz now leave. Because now I'm being escorted by the angels of Eretz Yisrael. But they're still here. What are these Chutz La'oretz angels doing here? They've done their job. They've taken me back to Eretz Yisrael. So if they've done their job, maybe there's another job I can use them for. And that is to appease my brother. Maybe that's why they're hanging around, if I can use that rather crude phrase. And maybe I can use them, and I should be using them. Maybe that's the message from Hashem. I should be using them to appease my brother. Okay. So therefore he sends malachim, not malachi Elohim. The malachim of Chutz La'oretz are just called malachim. Only the angels of Eretz Yisrael are called malachi Elohim. Below malachi Elohim. Now we jump down. And then he says, and we've not got long to go, so if you're finding this a bit strenuous, it is a bit deep, but anyway, here we go. Another thing, of a Yoma Yakov, what does Yakov say? Consider Al Maimer Yakov Lamalo. What did he say before? This is what we covered last week, and I trailed earlier in this year. In Elohim Amodi, remember he said, if Elohim is with me, Ki halo nemer loy hine anochi imcho. But God had said he's going to be with him. How could he say, this is a repeat of what the Alshich said last week, how could he express any doubt in the matter? In Elohim Amodi, Hakini Hashem, Hamiftocho as Hoyashem Arachimim. But when Hashem, as we remember, when he promised him he would be with him, that was the Shem of Rachamim, the Yud Kei Vav Kei Name. Ka'omar v'hine Hashem nitzav alav, ani Hashem Elokei Avram. The Omar hine Anochi Imcha, and I'll be with you. Who al pi midas harachamim? That's what the midas harachamim is saying. V'hine l'fa'almim, as we said last week, midas adin mekadreges a v'ashri mi sha'af midas adin tetiv loy. But maybe the Midas Adin would argue with the Midas Arachimim, which we saw an example of last week. Okay, Omar, who Midas Adin? That's why he said, if Elohim, that's the Midas Adin, is going to be with me, then everything will be okay. And this is we're coming to the last little bit we have to look at. And when he sees this tremendous honor he's been given, that the angels of Eretz Yisrael come to welcome him. Omer, he thought, I'm still not sure that from my concern that I'm guilty to some degree of illegitimately taking the blessing away from my brother. Because here the angels are coming to meet me, they're the Malachi Elohim that represent strict judgment. Maybe instead of being an honor, maybe they're pointing out that this something I've done wrong. Well, I'll P Midas Adin, Aini Batuaki, Enakamalakarakmin, as a different set of angels. Now I'm in trouble. Now that I'm coming back to the neighborhood where Eauv lives, and I'm now surrounded by the angels of strict judgment, Elohim, maybe I'm in serious trouble. So therefore, can I be safer as the Zohar says, as the Zohar again says, there are types of angels which are used as vehicles to carry out Midas Adin, strict judgment. Meaning, on the other hand, he sees great honor being sent to him, which we talked about before. Because you get two camps of angels. Because the angels that escorted me haven't disappeared. Okay, how you besophic, therefore Yakov was still in doubt. In Hiskim, who is Baruch, Imoy Bebrachas Imloy. Okay, in VaYishlach Malokim. And he was not clear at all if at that stage Hashem was fully approving of what he'd done in the past or disapproving. And that's why he sends angels, as we said, to find out instantly, instant response, as we said in our in our reasons why he would send angels. One, instant response to Eauv Alshich, to be able to see what's going on. Is it that he's going to greet me as my brother or as Eauv? And they don't know where Eretz Yisrael is, then they'd be able to find it. But maybe he's nursing his wrath, he's keeping his anger alive. They'll be able to look into his heart and see that. But more importantly, what is Hashem's cheshbon? How does Hashem view this? And indeed, the Zohar says that Yakov was criticized by Hashem for doubting and calling himself, I'm Yakov, your servant. He'd done nothing wrong. But this is very interesting. I have another shiur, a more general shiur, called Good Guilt and Bad Guilt. Unfortunately, Jewish people, the Jewish guilt trip is almost synonymous with Jewish books and Jewish people and popular culture. We're supposed to do guilt trips very, very well. Here's the deal. Here's the general rule of thumb. Indeed, if something happens to you in your life, the Gemara in Brachos Daf He says that you should examine yourself to see if you did do anything wrong that could justify the bad things that have happened to you. So looking to see if you're guilty to some degree in some aspect of your life is an appropriate response to when things go wrong in that life. But then the outcome and the purpose of identifying if you have done something that has provoked difficult things occurring in your life, then as soon as you react appropriately and change and apologize and uproot the source of what you did wrong, then it's all finished. So good guilt is when it evokes a positive change. Bad guilt is when it evokes simply self-doubt, not believing in yourself, and giving up and not growing as a consequence. But even according to the Alshich, Yakov Avinu was simply not sure. He was stuck with doubt. It's going to take him a long time to be able to be reassured, and that, of course, is the rest of the Sedra, or most of the rest of the Sedra when it talks about the confrontation between the two brothers. Ultimately, Yakov did nothing wrong, but a tzaddik is always worried. Could I have done more? Was there a problem, etc.? Yakov eventually his mind and his heart is settled on this. But for you and I, there is, despite we're going into all sorts of Kabbalistic deep waters, there's a profound message here. Good guilt is when indeed you've done something wrong and you feel guilty about it. And that evokes positive change. That's guilt that comes from up there. Bad guilt comes from down there. Its only purpose is to destroy you and make you feel bad about yourself and give up and get depressed and all the other negative forces, which the Yetzer Hara loves to deploy against us. That's a little insight through the eyes of the Alshich into the story of Yakov and Eauv, a confrontation which repeats itself all the way through history, because Edom and Esauv's philosophy is not tied, as we said at the beginning of the shiur, to a geographic location, to a nation. It is transient. It moves and transports itself between people, between peoples, and even Jewish people can take it up. Yaakov Avinu need have no, and Yaakov Avinu's children need have no guilt about being opposed to that sort of philosophy. I shall see you again next week. I wish you a very good Shabbos and hope that the week is very successful, healthy, and full of every good Torah blessing.